It's fair to say that Nikita Mazepin didn't enjoy the status of the fan-favorite driver during his Formula One stint. So, when it was announced just last week that Nikita Mazepin is getting dropped by Haas ahead of the 2022 season, many fans were delighted. The Steiner-led organization decided to terminate the Russian's contract after the loss of his financial backing, as the team was forced to drop the title sponsor Uralkali following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Haas F1 team has elected to terminate with immediate effect the title partnership of Uralkali and the driver contract of Nikita Mazepin, stated the team on Twitter. Speculation over Mazepin retaining his seat started as early as Barcelona testing, during which the conflict broke out. But the Russians' chances of getting sacked by Haas were second to none, as the FIA took immediate action and offered Mazepin the opportunity to drive under a neutral flag, as countries were starting to ban athletes competing under the Russian flag from their sporting events. The 23-year-old did not think twice and snatched the chance as he agreed to race under the so-called FIA flag. So, it seemed that any drama was over. Mazepin would be able to participate in the races, and therefore Haas will retain him. Right? Not in the world of Formula One. Haas shocked the world when they surprisingly announced that they will indeed be parting ways with Nikita Mazepin ahead of the 2022 season, as the team terminated their contract with Mazepin with immediate effect. And whilst this came as a surprise to the whole paddock, it was Mazepin who was shocked the most, as he admitted he got notified of the decision at the same time it was announced to the press. And the Russian driver didn't rule out the possibility of taking legal action against his former team either. "I value relationships a lot," said Mazepin. "I believe that F1 is a unique sport because it is very much about team building, and I was very disappointed because of the way it was handled," admitted the Russian racer. "I'm very disappointed to hear that my F1 contract has been terminated," Mazepin wrote. "While I understand the difficulties, the ruling from FIA plus my ongoing willingness to accept the conditions proposed in order to continue were completely ignored, and no process was followed in this unilateral step," stated Mazepin angrily just moments after his dismissal. "I'd like to think I'm a young man at 23, and I was not ready for it. I didn't receive any hint or any support to say that this is a decision we've taken, it's going to go live in 15 minutes, just be ready for it," continued Mazepin before talking about his disappointment in Günther Steiner. "In my previous relationships with Günther, which I rated a very good one and respected him as a man very much so, I have been used to believe 101% in his words. He's a team principal, and if he says something, it normally happens, or it always happens. But I have not heard any information from the team ever since this happened. And I learned about the firing of me the same time as it had been released to the press," the ex-Haas driver said. Mazepin then slammed down any suggestions of this being the end of his career, as he confirmed he still strives for a place in F1. "I absolutely do not see F1 as a closed chapter for me," he said. "I'm going to stay in a race condition, and I will be ready to take on an opportunity if it comes. And, at the moment, I'm only citing F1 and no other categories." So, as the 23-year-old believes he still has a future in Formula One, the main question remains whether his F1 comeback is going to come in the form of re-signing with Haas or trying to find a seat in a different team. Something Mazepin did not have to think twice about, as he immediately said, "I do not want to be at a team that doesn't want me. Formula One is a dangerous sport, and you have to rely on the team you're working with. It is a question of safety, and it is fair to say I don't have that trust in them," said the Russian. But whilst getting axed from your team has to hurt, Nikita didn't come bearing bad news only, as he admitted he was pleased with the support he got both from the fans but also from his fellow racers. He named the 4 drivers who didn't hesitate to contact him immediately, as they showed immense support for their ex-colleague. "Sergio, Valtteri, Charles, and George all contacted me," he said. "They know how important the situation is, and they showed their support after I lost the opportunity to compete," before elaborating on the nature of the texts. "The messages were nothing political, but just on a personal level, to keep my head up because athletes have been broken and lives have been destroyed after a decision like that. I would also like to add that I'm thankful for the support from them because, in the long journey towards F1, they've been, every one of them, risking losing their seats, and they actually support me in this time when I lost my dream and I lost my drive," concluded Mazepin. So, Even though this is a terrible situation for the young racer, as all his hopes and dreams shattered right in front of him in a split second, he doesn't seem to have lost his hunger, as he is able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, which remains to be a Formula One comeback. It is important to mention that Mazepin had no time to spare as he set up a foundation, which he decided to name We Compete as One, mimicking Formula One's We Race as One anti-racism initiative. A support organization for Russian athletes who lost their careers amidst the current war situation, as Mazepin aims for the foundation to provide them with financial, psychological, and legal aid. We all know that the career of an athlete is a short one, and that it requires years of intense sacrifice to perform at the highest level, he explained. When that final reward is taken away, it is devastating, and no one is thinking what happens next to these athletes. I will be addressing this, concluded the Russian. Many were left wondering about Haas's financial situation following the loss of Uralkali. Dmitry Mazepin was believed to have been injecting between $20 to $30 million per season to the team, which made it Haas's largest sponsor. But the team insists the revenue loss is not an issue that would keep them up at night. Financially, we are okay, said Steiner. It has no implication on the team, how we are running it, or how we're doing. There are more ways to get the funding, so that there's no issue with that one, continued the team principal, before being questioned about how Gene Haas, the team owner, feels about the situation. There is no issue with that one with him. He stands behind the position. He owns the team, so he knows what we are doing, and he supports it, concluded Steiner. It is no secret that Haas wasn't the luckiest of teams when it came to sponsorship deals. The team almost went bankrupt following their attempt to be sponsored by a very unknown energy drink brand in 2019, and is now facing potential legal threats from Dmitry Mazepin. It comes as no surprise that the Russian oligarch wasn't delighted with Haas, as the team broke multiple legally binding contracts between the two sides in the process of dropping his son. Dmitry Mazepin and Uralkali now issued a frightening response to the situation. As most of the sponsorship funding for the 2022 season has already been transferred to Haas, and given that the team terminated the sponsorship agreement before the first race of the 2022 season, Haas has thus failed to perform its obligations to Uralkali for this year's season. Uralkali shall request the immediate reimbursement of the amounts received by Haas, stated the Russian fertilizer giant. Uralkali intends to protect its interests in line with applicable legal procedures and reserves its rights to initiate judicial proceedings, claim damages, and seek repayment of the significant amounts Uralkali had paid for the 2022 Formula One season, wrote the former Haas sponsor. The refund from Haas and the remaining part of Uralkali's sponsor financing for 2022 will be used to establish the We Compete as One Athlete Support Foundation, concluded Uralkali. So, whilst Haas insist on being in a great financial position, having to transfer multi-8 figures to the Russian company's account is no easy task for the team, as it most likely represents a very large amount of their current liquid assets, something that could undoubtedly take a toll on the American team. But it's not all bad news coming from the Haas team. The organization used all its 2021 resources towards their 2022 VF22 race car, a bet that seems to be paying off, as the two Haas drivers set some blistering pace during the Bahrain preseason testing. Kevin Magnussen went quickest of all on Friday, and Mick Schumacher soon joined the party as he came out second best on Saturday, only missing out to Red Bull's Max Verstappen. So, maybe after all, it's not as bad for Haas as it might seem, as the team hopes to put its past behind them and get back to the midfield in 2022. We want to know what you guys think. Where do you think Haas will finish this year? And which of the two drivers do you see coming out on top? Let us know in the comments down below, as we always read each and every one of them. We've let YouTube decide which video of ours you would enjoy watching next the most based on your own unique watching habits. Let's see if they are right.